Hello, welcome everyone. We're going to wait a few minutes to while people sign in and get organized. But thank you for joining us so far. And also, as people are joining, feel free to, if you want to tell us where you're watching from, that'd be great. We can find all the different time zones. If I give it one more minute before we actually start our conversation. So thanks again for joining. London's in the house. Nice. Santa Monica. Woohoo. It's looking good. This is so exciting to see you all. Thank you. New Haven's here. We got some of your local people, Luke. I saw Peoria.
That's right.
Yay.
I'm representing from New York City today, but I'll be back in Peoria.
You're in my town.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, there's lots in Peoria.
It's a bigger town than you thought. Yeah.
It's the fan club.
Okay. Well, I think we can get started. Luke and Joey, you guys ready? Should we go?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay. So welcome everyone. And we're glad you're here to join us for this conversation called A Commercially Ready Solution to Adopting Next-Gen Materials. With me are Dr. Luke Haverhals, founder and CEO of Natural Fiber Welding, and Joey Pringle, founder of Vishin Factory. I'm Thomasine Dolan, and I work for MII, where I am the Material Innovation and Design Director. Before we start, I'd like to offer a belated congratulations to Luke because he's like winning all sorts of awards this year. It seems like the last 12 months. He specifically won Inventor of the Year. And then he also, NFW, was voted Most Innovative Company of the Year by Fast Company. So those are really exciting. Congratulations.
Congratulations to NFW. Certainly a team victory or set of victories there.
Yeah, well, we're really honored to have you here and had to have you both here, actually. So before we get into the rest of the conversation, I wanted to get a little background to share your backgrounds with our audience so they know how you got to this place. So Joey, if you could just, if I start with you, please tell us about your career and what brought you to this place.
Sure. So I try and keep it short and sweet, but ultimately I'm a designer, industrial designer from the UK, worked in Australia, worked in Canada, specializing in accessories design. And for me on my journey, what happened was I used to manage factories across Vietnam and China. Super long story short, but I ended up meeting a leather goods factory in southern China in 2018. And yeah, they wanted to transition to becoming a more sustainably progressive factory, moving away from leather based on their Buddhist values. And in 2018, I became a consultant for them, supporting them on how they can move away into becoming more sustainably progressive, because that's what I specialized in as a designer. And 2 years later, I went back to China to propose to them being a full-time consultant. And the owner of the factory said, hey, don't be a consultant. I want you to go into ownership with me and I want you to start this factory. So at the time, it was pretty crazy. I would never envisioned my life taking me to China or starting a business in China. But it's where I wanted to be in my life, in my career. I wanted to do something quite dramatic, something quite impactful. And as a designer, there's nothing more I could do really in this industry in sustainability. And I felt the biggest impact I could do was setting up a factory. And yeah, in 2020, I quit my job as a designer and moved back to the UK short term to see the family before moving to China. But with the pandemic and COVID, it delayed all my plans to relocate to China. So I ended up starting the company from the UK with my partners in China. And yeah, we slowly are transitioning from a leather goods luxury factory and handbags and accessories into specializing in next generation materials. And here I am now. I'm not in China. I actually live in Colombia now. And I'm expanding the company into Latin America, which is what I believe is our next biggest growth market for factory expansion.
That's a really interesting transition that you made throughout your life, actually, but especially like the last 5 years. And I feel that the pandemic launched a lot of companies. It launched a lot of new thought processes. And so I feel like there was quite a few designers, including myself, who was like, nah, I don't, I want to get into this side. I want to get into making things better, not adding to the problem. So thank you, Joey. Luke, please tell us a little bit about your story, which I find really interesting because I've heard it before, but I would love the audience to hear.
Sure, happy to. So I'm Luke. I used to be a chemistry professor. I still am a chemistry professor. But I guess what makes me maybe unique amongst in the world of chemistry is I was sort of a chemistry professor with an economics itch and focus. So technology is great. Technology, some people they're interested in technology for the sake sometimes or the curiosity of technology. I was always much more interested in the practical problems that you can solve if you know technology. And so my economics sort of interest was basically this: why do people think that plastics and materials made from petrochemicals, so this would include leather, rubber type materials, etc. Why do people think that those materials are inexpensive and cheap, when in fact they're the most expensive materials humans have ever tried to create? And because I knew technology of where materials come from, what I was basing that question on was the knowledge that, there's more than $100 trillion invested globally in the infrastructure that makes plastics, for example, possible, or coatings on leather, etc. And all of that infrastructure was built by the gross margin dollars of people's need for energy. So in other words, JP8, jet fuel, diesel, and gasoline is what built that infrastructure. And then plastics are the high molecular weight sort of byproducts from that process. And that's what people in the last 60 years have kind of been scaling without really thinking carefully about the carbon cost, the toxicity and human health factor costs, lots of costs. So I started as a chemist, and then I went on a quest to try to answer that question. And Natural Fiber Welding is the purpose-built organization and has a broad portfolio of technologies that are purpose-built not just to deliver materials that perform, and we'll talk more about that, but it's really built from a deep knowledge of an economics filter. In other words, you can't have impact without scale. And you can't have, by the way, anything that's at scale will have an impact. So in other words, the plastics industry is huge and it has a huge impact. And if you're going to build something better, then you got to be able to think about how to solve problems economically, not just technologically at the start, if you want to end up in a better place. So that's what brings me here. And then maybe one more quick thing to say is that if everything that Joey and I, that we'll talk about with you, Thomasine, if the stuff wasn't true, I'd still be in the chemistry lab trying to make it true. But importantly, because we can make materials in a fundamentally new way, in a way that's cost effective and scales and deploys globally very capital efficiently, the whole world's different. And so excited to talk about why the world's different.
So, well, I just wanted to add on, because there's another facet about your background, which I find interesting because I believe it informed your path as well, as my opinion, obviously. And that is, so you wanted to solve this plastics problem. You had this training, but you also came from a farm background. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you had this understanding of plants.
Yeah, when you understand that to solve something like the global carbon and toxicity and circularity problems with conventional petrochemically derived materials, then what you realize, the real question you need to ask is, where is there a free infrastructure solution? And having grown up on a farm, I was immersed in it as a child. So photosynthesis is the most at scale, unbelievably productive, wildly diverse, abundant, redundant, diverse production technology that humans could ever really know about. And so that was like part A to free infrastructure, was use the unbelievable pluripotent potential of plants and agriculture, and that agriculture can be done in a responsible, regenerative way. And then part B was, my mom is the best chemist I know, and we can talk more about that later, but she takes nutrients every single day, and using a very, elegant set of infrastructure called the kitchen, she makes a variety of different kinds of materials. They're materials that I love to eat, but I started thinking about, what if you could apply that same approach, and what if you could make materials that people wear, that you build shoes, that you build bags, clothes, furniture, car interiors out of. When you put those things together, you end up with a really powerful thing that satisfies those economic constraints and makes the world a better place, because you make all your materials from a very abundant production system that's already globally deployed.
So thank you for that. I wanted to just to back up a little bit, because you said something that I felt deserved a little pause moment, which is about scaling and impact, and true impact requires scale. And you have also added on in the past that transparency has to be a part of that as well. And I have to say, you're, in having known you for a couple of years now, you have always been very transparent about what you're doing, which I appreciate. But the thing I want to get back to with impact is that, and the reason why that equation resonates with me is because we see so many small capsule collections coming out that are often additive, right? They're additive. It's just more product from a brand. It's not necessarily replacing existing product that might not be sustainable, or et cetera, et cetera. But we have brands offering these small capsule collections using next gen materials, not because they don't want to do bigger collections, but there isn't enough supply for them to do larger collections. So, and that's where you come in, because you actually have the supply and you are commercially ready. And that's where Joey comes in, as you've got the team, the combination of, you have a wide range of commercially available materials that are 100% bio-based, no plastics at all. And then Joey's working with them and create. So anyway, that's just a really important part for people to recognize, that because there's been a lot of marketing and a lot of, just a lot of marketing around all these new materials, which are really exciting and get people going. And so we have small capsule collections, but you're actually doing it broadly, which really will have impact. But ultimately, we need brand adoption so that we can move the needle forward.
Yeah, it's been absolutely phenomenal to have partners like Joey. We've got Vishin Factory. We've been, from the start, we've been going to brands and getting their feedback about what works and what doesn't work. But you can't just go to brands, you have to go to supply chain. Yeah. Right. Because ultimately brands, for decades now, most brands don't actually make anything themselves. They simply design something and then send it to the Vishin Factory to get produced, or to the tier 1, tier 2 automotive, supply chain to get it produced. So getting the materials and the recipes, really, if I go back to the food analogy here, NFW has been focusing on, how do you get not just recipes that, here's a camper shoe, and it's available at the scale, anyway, brands like Camper, Allbirds, Unless, etc. You can get them to market at the scale of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pairs of shoes and things like that. But then the important thing is, when you know that these shoes are made in supply chain in a regular way, then you can understand why it's inevitable. It's not a matter of if, but when. Pick your favorite shoe brand that sells tens or hundreds of millions of pairs of shoes, why NFW wins those markets, and why we're working with people like Joey and Veshin, is because that's exactly what you need to do to have, well, not just an impact in the world, but an economic success that propagates itself.
So Joey, what makes Veshin stand out when it comes to making high-end products from next gen materials? Because I know that Some brands might be nervous about working with next gen materials. Will they fit into will they be plug and play? Will they fit into my supply chain? Will my manufacturers know how to work with them? So tell me about why Vishin stands out in this group. And then I also wanted to, after that, if you could talk to me about sourcing trims, if you do that as well.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, to your point on this whole space, it's extremely exciting, and this is ultimately why I quit my job. I believe in this movement. I'm a passionate vegan in my day-to-day diet, but does that word transfer into this industry? It doesn't. But with that being said, yeah, our goal is to get into this next generation material space, and it is extremely exciting. Where we are different to other factories is that, sure, we are a pre-existing luxury leather goods factory. There's loads of them on the planet, but we are set out to transition. We are set out to eliminate leather from our process. And by doing that, we can't just be like this factory that's waiting for that to happen. We need to take the initiative to make that change happen. So how we go about it, and my philosophy is, rather than talking to the brands at this early stage or a couple of years ago, is to work directly with the material suppliers extremely closely. So by doing that, we are understanding their material, we're understanding the constraints of it, because it's not easy transitioning from leather to these materials. And basically putting all that energy and R&D and investment into being one of the best factories on the planet that can work with these materials. And this is where NFW came on board, is because they believe in our philosophy of collaboration first, and then giving them a trustworthy place to ensure that when their material leaves Peoria and it goes to Vishin, they know exactly it's in the best hands possible. From a brand perspective, the last thing a brand wants is to order material from Peoria, send it to a factory that doesn't know how to work with it, or a factory tries to work with it. And what we're noticing right now is there's a lot of leather goods factories, extremely talented, but they see these materials, they give them a go, they give up quite easily. But for us, we don't give up, because it's our DNA to transition. So that's kind of what puts us in this unique space right now, is that NFW is backing us. They believe in us. They believe in our technicians. They're controlling that through us. And now through the catalog, we've controlled product design, we've controlled innovation, now putting forward the best product possible to the planet. Because the last thing the brand wants is to produce a collection, rush it to market, find out it's defective, find out it doesn't work. So that's where Vishin kind of steps in and plays that unique role in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Trims, what was the question on trims?
Oh, I was wondering if you do, because when looking through the catalog, there's and we're going to get fully to the catalog in a few minutes, everybody. But I know there are lots of trim options, and trim is a really important thing for brands as a way to, differentiate themselves, et cetera. But just as purely as a factory, so aside from the catalog, honestly, do you do trim sourcing for people, like with whether it's the linings for bags or the hardware?
Yeah, we do the entire thing. We're a one-stop show,
Okay.
which is, again, makes us somewhat unique to some extent.
Really valuable. Yeah.
You can come here, you haven't got to worry about all the sourcing. We can do it all for you. My background as a designer is in sustainable sourcing. My network is extensive, and I know how to try and produce the most progressive product. And yeah, we can, when it comes to making specific trims themselves, we can do like your patches for jeans and stuff like that. But traditionally, we're in that luxury space in handbags and bags.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you mentioned before, Luke, about being a kitchen, your mom and like NFW is a bit of a kitchen. And so does that make Joey or Vishin the restaurant? Or
Yeah,
the restaurant?
That's right. Like, let's take the analogy through, because it's very, very relevant. Everyone if it has a kitchen, has a pantry, right? And you've got different ingredients in the pantry, different kinds of flour, whatever. And once you have ingredients, and you can make materials. You can make noodles, you could make bread, you could make, right, different kinds of recipes, but you don't get a meal until you have a chef like Joey, and what Vishin does, and what consumers need to have is the whole meal. So, you know, and what I think works so well with the NFW Vishin partnership and like the whole approach is that we got two parties that care a lot more about the problem than they are in love with the solution. In other words, we're not looking at the world and so in love with one technology or so in love with one way of doing things that we have to do it that way always and forever. And in fact, when you overcommit to one technical solution, oftentimes you miss the opportunity to add new value and do new interesting things. So what we care about, you know, NFW takes on okay, how do we churn very, very low cost, abundant, redundant, diverse byproducts and co-products of food production, for example, just materials that are available at massive scale. When I say massive scale, I mean, you can take over $100 billion markets many, many times over, and you don't even come close to exhausting all of the world's waste rice hulls, for example, because there's so much of these materials around, they're just inexhaustible, and nature produces them year over year.
So Luke, could I interrupt you? Because there's a question I just noticed that sort of feeds into what you're saying. And then we are definitely going to jump over to the catalog, because I really want to find out how you two came up with the idea of having a catalog and this collaboration. But before that, because there's this interesting question from Catherine Bacora.
Rubber. Let me talk about rubber. So rubber's the sap of a tree. It's kind of like maple syrup. You know, you can make maple syrup year after year after year. You never have to cut the tree down. Rubber's that way. Rubber's sap of a tree. By the way, it's really interesting too when you're making high-end bags with Vishin and individual brands want to tell unique stories. There's all kinds of opportunities in this world and coming now where we can actually change supply chain for good. Right. So first of all, we can start with a whole bunch of commodity ingredients that do not commit or do not, you know, cause deforestation and are produced by farmers that are, you know, certified by third parties, taking care of the land and the communities around them. So like there's great third party partners like Fireside that are doing their own thing in the world to make sure that there is a safe, transparent, traceable, you know, supply of different kinds of natural ingredients and fibers. NFW can plug right into that, develop the recipes, make sure that the recipes deliver the material performance so that Joey's industrial design kicks in, and then also lets Vishin and NFW work together then with a brand on unique stories through time about like where the materials come from. Today, people don't want to talk about things like people pretend that cotton is a huge thirsty crop. Well, does anyone know what the water profile is for a fracking operation producing energy for polyester, or the fact that polyester comes from Russian oil? No one wants to talk about PFAS contamination. The world's rain is contaminated with PFAS at such a level that it's above the US EPA limit for drinkable water. In other words, you can't drink rain anywhere on planet Earth anymore, according to the PFAS standards, because of what's been going on in the fracking and the coatings industries over the last couple decades. So people should carefully consider the full holistic, traceable, transparent like picture. And the truth is there's plenty of problems yet, you know, in agricultural supply chain, but they're very, very overarchingly small. You know, that fundamentally the fossil fuels resource industry is only fundamentally extractive and destructive with how the materials are getting sourced. At least with agriculture, you have the ability to change it and improve it. So when it comes to rubber, things like that, NFW uses FSC certified rubber. This is, you know, third-party audited programs that show that you're taking care of people on the planet at the same time while you're doing the sourcing.
So Those are great solutions, obviously. And now I want to move on to the other solution that was the collaboration that you two came up with, a solution to having sustainable products. So Joey, how did you two meet, and what was the light bulb idea that, like, because you don't even live in the same town, so how did that even happen?
How do we meet? I don't know exactly. It's probably through an email.
LinkedIn. I'm pretty sure it was on LinkedIn, Joe. At least that's when I became.
Yeah, I mean, what happened
aware.
was, yeah, Luke and I connected on LinkedIn originally. We started off on a bad foot.
Well, it wasn't a bad foot.
It was a foot.
Anyhow, what happened was, basically, yeah, I've been knocking on material suppliers' doors since the get-go. My philosophy is to collaborate directly with material suppliers. We've worked with many on this journey. We've worked with many commercially ready solutions. Our goal right now is, as I said, we're transitioning. We need to make money to transition. We're not in this waiting mode. I've been banging on the NFW door since day one. Eventually, we started talking. And yeah, we started to, Luke and I were really aligned in our philosophies and our frustrations. And ultimately, the catalog came out of just the pain points on both of our journeys. And those pain points for both companies were that we are extremely excited about this movement. We are two companies taking the lead who are commercially ready right now. We're not in R&D mode, we're not in innovating mode. We have a factory in China. NFW has material. What we were seeing was that, sure, the excitement is there. Brands, big brands, small brands, everyone is interested in this movement. Everyone's excited in it. However, we weren't seeing that kind of that leap of faith and taking that next step into adopting these materials. For us, a lot of the smaller brands that we were in talks with were the ones really trying to move the needle. But from a business perspective for Vishin, unfortunately, we're not set up for smaller companies. The volume of interest coming through was incredible, but our MOQs are just too high, unfortunately. So with all these pain points, we were like, okay, how do we switch it? How do we flip it on its head? Instead of waiting for the industry to wake up and to start really accelerating. Sure, we're in a bad economy right now. There was COVID. There's all these other reasons for why this has been a slow transition. What we said was, how can we turn this on its side? Like I was tired of talking to many brands, starting the conversation, and then it stopped. So I said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to create a catalog. We're going to create commercially ready product, not just for the fashion industry, but for the home and decor industry, for the pet accessories industry, for corporate gifting.
That's what I love, is that you've crossed so many industries. I was really surprised when I first saw your catalog, how you were covering fashion, home and auto, and pets.
We're built for the luxury fashion world. However, like, we have a factory and we can be diverse. So instead of waiting, we put together this catalog, working with deliberately with NFW. The pain points were cost of the product. We're a high-end factory, and Mirum isn't cheap. I mean, it's a extremely plastic-free material, and it has a price point attached to that. By creating our own catalog, we could lower the price point. We could control the MOQ, bringing down the MOQ to give every brand on the planet, small or big, the opportunity to start their Mirum collection. So right now we put it together, and the whole idea is to open doors. We don't want every brand taking a product from that catalog and competing with each other. I fully understand that's going to look confusing to the market, everyone having the same product from the catalog. The catalog there is to accelerate your go-to market with a Mirum product for you to be able to get proven sales, to then come back with confidence to hit a higher MOQ, to hit the price point, to not have inventory. The catalog is designed to do that. And
no, those MOQs are so, I was really shocked and surprised by the MOQs, how low it was, because those are like New York City MOQs. Like in New York City, you could get 25 pieces made or 50 pieces made.
And
you can never get,
it's extremely difficult to do that. But if we do that through the catalog, we can afford to do that. Is the catalog going to be profitable for us with those MOQs long term? No, but the goal is to open the door. You crush through 50 bags in a couple of months, then you come back and do 200.
Yeah.
That's the goal of the catalog.
Yeah, and they're
The reason
customizable. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Luke, please.
I was just going to say, and that's so valuable too for NFW, right? Because you could all ask yourselves on this call, how is it that a little company in Peoria, Illinois has 1,500 plus brands in its CRM, and we didn't reach out to statistically any of them, right?
I didn't know that. That's amazing. Wow.
So, okay, and it's overwhelming because it's every large car company in the world, it's every large shoe company in the world, it's every large luxury brand in the world, it's every large furniture brand, every big fashion house and fashion brand, and then all the medium ones and the little ones too, basically. Okay. And NFW, it's a big challenge to have to try to work with the entire world supply chain all at the same time. But when we can focus with Joey on the fact that there's already hundreds of brands that Joey knows how to serve, that Vishin knows how to serve, and that catalog says, okay, here's your basic design to get started, but now knock yourselves out with derivatization once you feel comfortable. And by the way, their team knows how the ins and outs, every single material on the planet that you work with, there's different ins and outs of the materials. They understand these well. And so they're the folks that can be most effective at getting it out to medium brands, small brands, big brands, anyway. And that's the real quality aspect to how the partnership works well. It's like they know how to interface out this way. NFW, it lets us focus in on working with them, and then a lot of people can get a lot of impact value out of that collaboration.
So I want to let our audience members know that feel free to type in question. There is one question here. Joey, you may have seen it. It's for both of you, but Joey specifically, regarding choice of colors in the catalog and wondering why it's limited, and feeling that brands always want lots of options, which, having come from the brand world, that's true, and everybody wants custom work. But I understand why for this collaboration and this particular.
Why it's limited in colors. We're using all the commercially ready colors NFW is offering. We're using all the materials they're offering. It's limited in customization because to do customization, you have to go to the next tier of our business model, which we're originally an OEM factory. We only produce with our clients based on their tech packs. Once we bring it down under MOQ, we have to be mindful of our patent team, our makers, the energy of our merchandisers. This is why it's limited that way. As I said, the goal is for you to get it out there to market quickly. If you go through our original process, you have high MOQ, you got high inventory, you never put a mirror product to market, and the process of regular R&D, sample development is a couple of rounds. It takes a long time. Yeah. This expedites that. Then you come back, as I said, to doing your customization and everything else you want to get into.
And
Luke, I was just about to ask you. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Plenty of colors and things, that we're now qualifying, right? So keep in mind too how fast this is all happening. Like again, when Joey answered the question earlier, like Joey said, I don't know, Joey and I have met each other a year and a half or something ago, two years ago at the most. Okay, NFW in the first few years of our existence, we developed the recipes, made sure that the recipes have the right, Bailey flex and tenacity, and know how to engineer different bands of elongation, etc. We raised the Series B and built Gen 1 factories in 2022. And now we're globally deploying and adding colorways and all of the other things that you would expect that a company with technology that works should be doing, we're doing. So this is going to hit very, very hard and fast, a lot harder and faster than some people might suspect, because there's a lot of people spending a lot of money on very, very particular ways of doing things that then even when they spend a lot of money, their ultimate capacity is quite low. There's factories that NFW is working with that also run their own roll-to-roll processes, for example, or know how to run roll-to-roll processes. So what we developed in Peoria runs on infrastructure that's globally deployed or deploying now. We're using other people's money. So that means, it's not just that NFW and Vishin are collaborating. Right now, it's true materials leave Peoria, they go to Vishin Factory. In the future, there's roll-to-roll production. It's not that far away. Roll-to-roll production in Southeast Asia goes to Vishin in Southeast Asia.
It's going to make it even easier. It's going to make the cost even lower, the carbon footprint even lower. We're in Colombia right now. We're looking into expanding into Europe. The whole goal is going to be like, how can we minimize this footprint with NFW and their expansion and our expansions to create it as accessible to anyone on the world? The excuses right now is that, oh, we don't want to work in China. I understand China is controversial, which is why I'm in Colombia, which is why for the US market, Colombia is a better fit potentially longer term. But there's so many European brands, they love what we're doing, but does it make sense to them to switch from Italy to China? No, because the footprint's high, the transportation's high. In time, with the pace this is moving at for both companies, in a couple of years, we're going to have like options for NFW times Vishin, material into Vishin factories, wherever you want it to be in the world. That's our goal.
Yeah, transferable technology is really important. Agree, to shorten supply chains and all this crazy shipping that's happening everywhere. I'd like to get to a couple of questions, if I may. This first one's for Joey. I'm just going to read it rather than paraphrase. What next? And it's from Lior Christel. What next gen leather material? Sorry, with the next gen material being number one material opportunity, which next process do you forecast to be the earliest adoption on the market for brands to scale that would meet price and consumer adoption? And do you think biomaterial could be adopted into the current manufacturing systems? That's
I can start, by the way. I mean, that from the material side, there's about $100 billion of leather that sells in the world each year in a price band of $2 to about $7 US per square foot. Anyone who's trying to sell leather-like materials for really more than $7, but even in the $6 band, there's not that much volume. Anyone that's trying to sell materials for more than that is not going to have an impact. They might have a little niche business, but they're not going to have an impact. So NFW is geared up here to take out the full stack of pricing and make money with materials that perform in all those bands, and where we've already built full car interiors, and where Joey's got a whole catalog, and where the technologies globally deploy. So this is the singularity event, you could say, in terms of, because the input ingredients are low cost, and it's high throughput roll-to-roll machines and mechanical muscle.
So
when they say process, they mean like which market is the next one to basically take off, I'm guessing. So
yeah,
to answer the last question, can it be adopted into current manufacturing systems? Of course it can. We're doing it right now. We're proving it. This is the purpose of this conversation, is that it's a commercially ready solution, which is the exciting thing. Yeah. Is it perfect right now? By all means, there's loads of improvements to be made. The sector that I'm most excited about, obviously fashion is what we started with, but fashion is quite slow right now. The fashion system is pretty broken. So it's hard to work in that system, but it will take off. I think the pet accessories and the home decor movement is extremely exciting. Just like the vegan food movement, when Beyond Meat went public, the entire thing blew up. Right now, we're on that verge of that ticking time bomb. And to me, NFW and Mirum is that bomb. And it already has blown up, but no one's seen the eruption, which is why the catalog is here to kind of make that catalyst and to create that eruption. The whole thing is going to go completely crazy, which is the most exciting thing.
I have a question from Wendy Wolfman, and she asks, are there any near-term plans for NFW to work with high-end designer brands other than Stella McCartney? She says it's almost impossible to find high-quality vegan shoes and handbags. Most high-quality products seem to be made of leather, and most vegan products seem to be made of toxic materials and plastics.
Wendy, get in touch. We're ready to go.
Exactly. Go to Joey. Joey's the solution there, because anybody who's an intermediate, small sized designer or brand, that's exactly why Joey and Vishin and NFW created this.
It's
this
not
catalog.
a capsule. It's not like limited. Some of the other suppliers, the way they've gone about it is they've limited it to consortiums. This is no consortium. As Luke and I talk about, we started a party and everyone can come to our party. Like if that's where you're at and you want to be like Stella McCartney, by all means, come and join. So get in touch.
Here, this is an interesting question. This is from Diana Ingalls, and she says they're coming from an educational point of view. And she said, in explaining what Mirum is to clients, what would be the elevator pitch to say that it's an eco-conscious? What's the elevator pitch to explain to someone who doesn't really know what's happening in your world?
Yeah, it's low carbon, non-toxic, and naturally circular. It's composed only of nutrient neutral, bio-neutral ingredients. There's zero petrochemicals, zero plastics involved. And then it's just like bread. You can get different kinds of bread, or you can get the same kind of bread with even differences that maybe you wouldn't notice when you're tasting the bread, but you could ask the baker and they could tell you, oh, there's different kinds of flour depending on the price of flour. We use this flour or that flour. NFW can get lignocellulose and cellulosic fibers. And by the way, chitin and all the kinds of natural materials that are available in the world, you can get your hands on those things. And if you know how to formulate and build recipes that run on roll-to-roll equipment, well, that's what NFW figured out how to do and patented and is now doing. So nature provides veggie oils and natural rubber and all sorts of amazing high-performance materials that we know how to put together and make all natural composites that do what plastics do, but without being plastic.
Natural materials, plants, not plastic.
Plants, not plastic. That's
yeah.
right. There was a question about compostable plastics too. I could quick jump into that.
Sure.
Kind of like
I'm going to go to Chodney after that. So go ahead.
So the question on compostable, couple of things there. Number one is the issue with plastics and bioplastics often isn't the specific speed at which things degrade. The issue is what toxic, like phthalate chemistries might have you put in your plastics to get the rheology right so it flowed and was moldable. So, most of the issues with endocrine disruption and why women are getting cancer and having fertility issues upon exposure to plastics isn't the polymer plastic, it's the additives that are added to the plastic. That's the issue. It's the toxicity that people put in those systems in order to get things to mold and flow. So anyway, we pay a lot of attention to both the things that people know to ask about and the things that, unless you're a chemist, you wouldn't know to ask about. And that's really the issue with when you get into bioplastics and other alternative forms of other things that might not be conventional plastic. You got to look into the real devil of the details of what kind of other chemical additives are people adding.
I'm going to pose this next question to Joey. It's from Chodney, but after that, I think that Chodney might be our last question because we have to wrap it up. We're running out of time, and I just want to have a chance to let Joey and Luke have their sign off. So this question again is from Chodney to Joey. What are the challenges in production in working with Mirum?
The challenges right now, there's only one challenge, and that Mirum comes on a sheet. So when we talk about the patterns and utilization, for sure, it's not as easy as being on a roll. But with that being said, one of the most exciting things about this partnership is that with the scale and the acceleration of NFW and what they're doing is that they're going to be roll ready very soon. So the one obstacle that we do have, there's a solution for it coming right now. I've been to Peoria myself. I've seen the production. I've seen what's happening firsthand. And yeah, I mean, that challenge will be quickly eliminated. So that's exciting. When it comes to the utilization and the waste, for sure right now there is higher waste being on a sheet. But again, one of the beautiful things about working with this company is that at the end of life of the product has a solution. We can gather all that waste, we can put it in a bin for the course of the year of production. We can ship it back to Peoria, and then they can turn it back into either mirum or dirt or something else. The circularity of this material is incredible.
I'm so glad you said that, because there were some questions that were hinging on that. And there's a really, I wanted to wrap it up, but there's another good question I wanted you to get to, Luke. It's from Martina. How well has mirum performed when it comes to footwear over time, and how does it age? Have you done like advanced, aging of things?
Yeah, I mean, we do that. We've done that because we have automotive customers that are coming online, and you can imagine automotive standards for aging are much more difficult than for footwear. So, we've had shoes in market now for more than a year, I guess, and the shoes keep working, and the prototypes that were made even before those were launched, they keep working. Footwear doesn't need to last for the same amount of time as a car seat. And so now we're passing those standards as well. And so there's no fundamental reason when you think about how durable trees are and how durable cellulose and rubber and veggie oils and things like that can be, and how durable those materials are in nature, then you understand that, yeah, probably NFW knows how to make materials that are very, very durable, just like nature does, because they're natural materials. So, and then because they're all natural, means you can grind them up and give them back to nature. That's staying within nature's circularity is a key thing. Joey mentioned sending us back scrap. They could send us back scrap, or it turns out there's infrastructure close by that we can just turn the scrap around, and nature knows what to do with it locally. So you don't have to do the shipping in order to run this kind of circular economy, because nature is already around us doing the circular economy.
There's so much awesomeness in this discussion. I hate that we have to bring it to a close, but everyone's contact information, when I say everyone, Luke and Joey's contact information are in the chats. Please reach out to them, because you have super valid questions, and it's just going to make everything, the more knowledge we have, the better. So I'm just going to turn it to Joey and then Luke to sign off, and then I'm going to have a last word. Thanks, Joey.
So yeah, I mean, ultimately, as we keep talking about, time is now for us to get going. So if you're a small brand and you want to get started, the catalog is there to give you that place to enter the market. If you're a bigger brand and maybe the catalog isn't a fit for you, we can still start that conversation for more bespoke OEM. And yeah, just get on board, and you can contact me on LinkedIn, follow us on Instagram if you simply just want to support us. And by all means, everyone is welcome to join this journey.
And I believe your contact info is in the chat,
it's
right?
all in there. Yeah, just Joey Pringle, LinkedIn, and then at Vishin Factory, Instagram, and the website as well to get in touch. And if you want to start placing orders, the catalog is, I believe, it's been shared at the end of the catalog is.
Yeah, that's right. They can find you through that. And Luke, what's next for you? I know you're constantly evolving materials and developing new things.
Yeah, things to expect are massive factories that are going to be able to, be our production, our co-producing system. Are going to be, that's what we're doing right now. So there will be increased volumes out of Peoria, but there will be new volumes emerging from around the world on the whole ecosystem of the platform. And there's a lot of opportunities for different people to be involved in that. So there's from investment all the way through to other brand customers and things. And then I'd like to kind of sign off by just sharing gratitude, of course, to Joey and Vishin. They've been just outstanding. Again, people that are very, very careful and thoughtful about solving the problem, not getting too excited about one solution, so to speak, or another. Or in fact, it's not a solution until it has an impact at scale. Then you can call it a solution. That's our partners at Veshin. I would send anybody who has questions about the space to Joey. He really is truly an expert that's seen everything that's out there. And you can see the passion bleeding through because yeah, he likes NFW and he likes Luke and Luke likes him back, but we both care about solving this problem, everybody. And you don't solve this problem unless you have an economically viable solution at scale. And you tell that by being able to buy the product. That's maybe the last thing I'll say. For those folks looking out into the world and trying to figure out what's going to win this space, I'll say, well, here's simple logic. If there's a company that claims they have a material, but you can't buy their material in a shoe, but you can buy some other company's material in a shoe, then I guess that tells you something, right? And when you consider that how intermediate sized brands build shoes relative to the monster brands, how they build shoes or bags, they're the same basic parametrics, then you understand what's probably going to win at big scale. And so thank you also to MII for putting this on and for your leadership in trying to help raise awareness about that the world needs materials that are holistically sustainable and good for people and the planet at the same time.
For sure. Thanks, MII, Nicole, Anastasia, everyone who's supported us and pulled the strings to kind of make this happen and give us a spotlight to talk about it.
I truly have great colleagues. I wish everyone could be here and our audience can meet them all. So, but on that note, I do want to remind our audience that MII is a nonprofit and we do rely on philanthropy. And if you find value in our work and our free reports that we publish online and webinars like this, we would ask that you consider making a tax-deductible donation to materialinnovation.org/support. And then additionally, if you are a brand interested in guidance for sourcing next-gen materials and factories or other benefits, please contact us regarding our brand partnership program. We also have corporate sponsorship opportunities as well. And then lastly, please don't forget to register for our MII conference coming up in June of this year. It's June 21st, 22nd, 23rd. If you go to our website, you can see the panels that we have in mind, and we're releasing speakers weekly with who's going to be joining us. So it's going to be really fun and as always, really interesting and engaging. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been fun, you guys.
Thomasine, is this recorded? Someone just asked, how can people see the
playback?
playback?
It's recorded. Yes, everyone.
How can we see the playback?
You can go to if you registered, you're automatically going to get the chance for the recording if you register for today. Otherwise, it'll be on the MII website where you can see, and it's, so we can find out.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. And
thanks, everybody.
speak to you
Thank
soon.
you.